Hey guys, I hope you all enjoyed part one of my coaching conversation with Nathan Kiely. Apologies, Nathan. The first part I did say Nathan Kiely, just recently found out it's pronounced Kiely. If you guys do have any more questions after watching part two of the conversation, feel free to drop them in the comments below. I think these conversations are the kind of thing that you probably could have a notepad or have your phone with you just to write down a couple of points that pique your interest. It's definitely what I was doing during the conversation. You might even see me trying to jot down some points to reel back around to. But this is essentially what I'm trying to achieve through this. Hopefully there's a couple of great insights. There's a couple of things that pique your interest. There's topics that you didn't even know that you could think about. And hopefully you guys will start to develop some great questions that will help you in your career. So without further ado, here is part two. That rhymes.
I think the issue that some people get in with, like, say, bony stress is, they load it, that's great, but they don't get any time to recover, and probably looking more at the guys in the subcontinent or the guys who are 15 to 17 years old here in Australia into playing school cricket, whether that's, APS here in Melbourne, playing club cricket, cricket, and they end up playing twice on the weekend, training 4 or 5 times during the week, and break down and wonder why.
Yeah, if you're looking at bowling loads specifically, Cricket Australia has a really good system for how we recommend that players load. And I suppose you're talking about like heuristics or rules of thumb. Like, I think this is something that everyone should know and understand. So we've got 2 versions, and they're based on the chronological age of athletes, which is not necessarily a perfect way of looking at it, but essentially the younger you are, no, sorry, that's not the right way of looking at it. The more vulnerable you are because of your rate of growth, the higher your risk of bone stress injury. So basically the most vulnerable group that we see is under 17, under 16 fast bowlers. They're the ones who break the most because they've just started to go through puberty. They're getting taller, they're getting stronger at a rapid rate. And bones grow long before they grow strong. So you've got these longer, skinny bones on a frame of an athlete who is getting stronger at a very quick rate, and their bowling loads are going through the roof because of all these new competition demands. And for that cohort of highest risk, what we use as a rule of thumb for them to follow is what we call the 1-3-5 rule. And basically what that means is the number 1 is the number of days we recommend you bowl in a row. So basically what that means is we don't recommend bowling on back-to-back days. So frequency is clearly one of the most important risk factors. You just got to look at stimulus adaptation. If you provide a stimulus and you don't create a window for adaptation, then you are going to not necessarily detrain, but you're going to overstress tissues. So if you always alternate day on with day off, you're already on the path to success. So if you bowl on Monday, do not bowl on Tuesday. That doesn't mean you can't do like low intensity, extensive technical drill work, but high intensity bowling, do not do them on back-to-back days if you're in that 16, 17-year-old cohort. So we have 1, and then 3 is our next one, which is again dealing with frequency of bowling, and that's 3 days in a week. Okay, so by the very nature of being day on, day off, essentially you can't break that rule anyway. So 3 days in a week maximum bowling where you can. And the last one is 5, being 5 overs in any given spell. And what we know is that as you bowl more overs and more fatigue sets in, you're more inclined to use compensatory strategies in your bowling technique. So your action will change due to fatigue, and you'll start loading tissues that aren't as well conditioned for that load, and that's when injuries occur. So that's 1-3-5. That's 16, 17-year-old fast bowlers. Just thinking, I kind of had like a transient thought that there was something I missed with that. 1-3-5. So the obvious exception is that we do understand that competitions often have back-to-back bowling days.
Yeah, gotcha.
Which is not ideal, but basically we allow athletes to break that rule when competition demands that the frequencies are out of whack. But it's important that you acknowledge when you have to bowl on back-to-back days and then make up for it with off days as well. And you follow 135 religiously when you are in control of your bowling. So pre-season, your training scheduled throughout the week. When athletes get a little bit older, we go to what is now 246, used to be 247, but we've gone down to 246 now. And the numbers correlate to the same thing. So 2 days in a row, 4 days in a week, 6 overs in any given spell. Again, frequency is really important. So we now start to introduce some back-to-back bowling because if we want cricketers to play at an elite level, that is what the competition demands. So we need to start conditioning them for that. But we don't want guys bowling 3 days in a row when they're 18, 19, even 20, 21. That's unless a really important competition demands that you do that, you should be avoiding it. And not all competitions are really important. This is one of the things that I think a lot of athletes in that age category struggle with, is that playing school cricket is the most important thing, along with playing Premier cricket, along with playing under 20s. It's all the most important. I don't want to miss any games. But you just need to be smart. You need to start prioritising what's important and what's not. Start to let them bowl 4 days a week. So you can have potentially Tuesday, Thursday training bowls, and then bowl Saturday, Sunday in grade Premier cricket or underage cricket. However, like if we look back at the 135, if you're going to bowl back to back on the weekend, you are not bowling twice at training throughout the week. You're picking one day. Okay. So you're 246, and then we've increased the length of the spells that they can bowl up to 6 overs. Again, for the same reasons. We know that as the spells get longer, your technique changes. Again, I had another transient thought of something that I thought was important to say, and I've forgotten what it was. Whatever, it's gone now. But yeah, so essentially the important things are you should not be bowling 5, 6, 7 days a week. You should not be bowling 100 balls in a training session. The thing I was going to say is just because you've got 5 or 6 over limit in a spell does not mean you've got a 5 or 6 over limit in a day. So if you are going to have a training session where you bowl 60 balls, which is something you potentially could do at times, you need to have a good rest in between those spells. So refuel, rehydrate, have a rest. You might do some low intensity work in that time. Don't go and do an MAS or sprint running session while you're meant to be resting, because that is definitely not going to help you maintain your bowling technique in your subsequent spell. And yeah, I mean, like for most players, that's when you do your batting.
Yeah.
Have a bat, have a bite to eat, have a banana, have some water, maybe do some static catching, probably not like boundary riding practice. Yeah. Like it should be a rest in terms of the stresses that you're putting on your body, and give yourself a chance to come back and bowl your second spell with good technique and good intensity. Was the question about bowling loads, or was the question about load?
And we sort of touched on looking at it from the long term versus just perspective, like just looking at bone stress and then talking about vulnerable versus guys who are a bit older. And like I said, the guys who are sort of that below 17 are the guys who are most at risk, and probably the guys that need just the most informing, you know, so they can...
Yeah, like rules of thumb, if you follow 135 or 246, like 90% of the errors that we see in bowling loads, well, actually 100% really, if you actually follow that religiously, you can't make rookie mistakes with your bowling loads. It doesn't mean you won't get injured, because you're still at high risk. Like the number one risk factor for a lumbar spine stress fracture is being a 17-year-old male. And if you're a 17-year-old male, that's not modifiable. We can't do anything about that. So there's always going to be an inherent risk, but what we want to try and do is avoid compounding modifiable risk factors. So if you follow 135 or 246, you're reducing the risk.
Yeah, it's a way to look at it.
You're mitigating.
Apply the compounding risk factors. It's nice catchphrase there.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you want to talk about the run up a bit more as well? Because I know that was a topic you're interested in.
Yeah, so there was the point I was looking at was, I think now we can sort of touch a bit more on technique, because I like to think about the technique of your run up is going to affect the technique of your bowling action. And you can look at some of the common issues with, say, running. It might just be your centre of mass is all over the shop. You're just unstable in a sense, overstriding. If you're overstriding during your run up, leading into your jump and your back foot contact or whatnot, I can anecdotally, with relative certainty, assume that you're going to have some issues. And
I think like the thing I'll say with the run up is it just needs to be smooth, relaxed, rhythmical, and clean. You don't need to run up like a sprinter, because it's a run up, not a sprinter. Again, if you make the mistake of following #fastbowling on Instagram, like you'll see kids raring in at 8.5 meters per second, and no one is going to be strong enough to attenuate the ground reaction forces that you're going to create on front foot contact running that fast. Like the best fast bowlers in the world who run in fast are like 6.5, maybe 7 meters per second. And those are the guys, who bowl 145 plus. So if you're a 16-year-old fast bowler, you don't need to run in faster than those guys.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And your run-up speed is going to be a reflection of what sort of ground reaction forces you can attenuate at front foot contact. If you are not strong enough to retain a good technique in your bowling action, running in faster is only going to make that worse. So that's why I say it should be smooth, relaxed, rhythmical, and clean. And clean is what we don't want is messy running technique. But like I said, you don't need perfect sprint technique. You just needs to be passable. And there are plenty of very good high-level fast bowlers who do run a little bit like Gumbies.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop them from being ranked number one in the world, but they're still fast, explosive, smooth, and relaxed. And it's not a total mess. Again, this is where you kind of come back to your attractors versus your fluctuators, like what's actually important. Like, to an extent, you could argue that some aspects of a fast bowler's arm action in their run-up. I mean, I've seen plenty of elite level fast bowlers who do funny things with their arms. So does it matter? Like, if it's causing other errors, then it matters. But if it is just an idiosyncrasy, I don't know if it's worth the time of day trying to coach it. Like, it doesn't matter.
On that, if I see someone running like this,
yeah,
in their technique, there might be a mixed action loading up like that with the hips going that way, then that might be something I might look at. Just thinking of an example that I might.
Yeah, potentially that's a habit that's feeding into a subsequent mistake. But if they're running in with their arms crossing over, they're staying rigid and strong through their trunk, and they don't have excessive shoulder rotation in their run up, and then they've got a passable looking bowling action, like, yeah, sure, let's still try and make you run better when we're coaching the actual sprinting. But in terms of your fast bowling run up, perhaps that idiosyncrasy is something that gives that bowler more rhythm, relaxation, and comfort that sets them up to bowl better. So why change that? Like another interesting one, I've heard some coaches argue that all fast bowlers should start on their marker at the top of their run-up and run in from there. But I've also seen plenty of fast bowlers who walk into their mark from all sorts of different walk-in lengths.
Yeah.
Some of them will have marks that they run into. Like, I don't think what happens in the first 5 meters of your run-up matters as much as some people make it out to
No.
be. Like the run up is all about generating linear momentum that you're going to then transfer through the kinetic chain into the ball. It's not about being the best 5 metre accelerator at the top of your run up. Like if what you're doing there doesn't negatively influence what happens later on, then it kind of doesn't matter. But there is also a really good argument to be made for good changes to running technique in terms of if we can make you more efficient, you're going to have a reduced metabolic cost from each individual run up, so it potentially leads to a greater reserve of energy for you to expend at the crease when you bowl, but it also potentially allows you to bowl longer spells, more balls in a day. And then it's also not uncommon for fast bowlers to suffer injuries in their run-up. So whether that's a hamstring or a calf strain late in the day, fatigue, dehydrated, it can happen. Being an overstrider is a risk factor for hamstring injury. And I'm actually not aware of any technical risk factors for calf injuries. But if you've got a history of calf strains, your risk of subsequent calf strains are much higher. So being able to run in smooth and relaxed, like if you're taking off, like you're coming out of the blocks at the Olympics at the start of your run up, you are definitely going to be loading your calves.
Michael would do that, but he changed it, I think.
Well, yeah, he went back away from it, didn't he? I don't know why he went back away from it, but there was definitely a time where he was coming off like 10 metres and just blaring in like.
Yeah. Chris Phelps was talking about this. This is one of his examples of Lockborough doing their thing. He was saying that the forces that were going through his ankle off that sort of run up were higher. And when they took him back to a longer run up to build into it, the force at his ankle ended up being a lot lower. And
like I was only talking with one of our bowlers the other day who's got like an Achilles tendinopathy, and she was saying that there's like a particular step in her run up where it really bothers her. We just had a look at some video, and it was the one stride where she had like a good ball of the foot, athletic foot strike. So I kind of said, just run up from a little bit further in, and like it's probably beneficial for you to heel strike on every single step. Because you're not going to load your like, wasn't hurting her on front foot contact, wasn't hurting her on back foot contact. It was just that one stride in the run up where she grimaced, and it set up the rest of her run up to be less optimal. So I think long, smooth, relaxed run ups where we build like a crescendo to a peak in run up velocity. Well, actually, there's sort of two strategies that bowlers will use with their run-ups. You have those who accelerate a bit more aggressively, reach a peak that's actually higher than what they'll be at back foot contact.
Yeah.
And they'll get there, and then they just sort of let go and fall back to a relaxed run-up speed. Yeah. And then they hold that through back foot contact and bowl. And then you've got others who build like a crescendo and reach their peak run-up velocity at back foot contact. And I've seen fast bowlers who play for Australia that use both strategies. So to say one is better than the other, don't really know. Potentially that's a question for a fast bowling coach to have a think about, but again, it also might just be a fluctuator that's actually not something that we need to coach. But what we don't want is people who peak really high really early and then slow down a lot towards back foot contact.
Most of them, I remember having that walk when I was discussing I did run up and lost more. And I like the crescendo just because you're not wasting any energy, and it just might just be my anecdote. Because I've done both, where I used to mark my run up out, and there was mark at 18 and mark at 22, and that was where I hit stride, and then I would stride out, and I can't remember who it was. It might have been listening to someone like Dennis Lilly talk about how he does it, and then a couple other coaches. I just sort of thought maybe I should have a bit of a play around with this and find something where I can almost like set a mark and just sort of slowly roll in, and that definitely felt better because you're not burning myself out in those sort of first things to try to hit stride, and then if it's too long a run up, which I feel like 20 meters is all the distance that you need. But I know some guys like to walk a bit back and then anyone going around 30 meters, do you need that long? I wonder, but
Well, it's interesting. Like, I think if you're going to have a run up that's that long, you better be well conditioned for it. Like if you want to run in 30 meters, you better be a big, strong, powerful, athletic fast bowler who can run a 2K time trial in 6:45. Like, or can run very fast. Like, you've got a very high ceiling for your sprint velocity. So we've got a couple of guys who are upwards of 30 and one who is a very good fast bowler who runs in from about 35 meters. But like the thing that I think reveals whether your run up is right or not is if you look at the bowler and they look like they are cooking themselves running in, it's too long. These guys who run in from 35 meters, it's surprising how smooth and relaxed and comfortable they look running in from that far. Like, all you need to do is just take your average weekend warrior and get them to run in from 30 meters, and you're going to see, like, it's hard work for them. But you look at an elite level fast bowler, like, it looks like what your weekend warrior does off 10 meters. Like, it looks effortless, and that's because they've got a really high level of physical preparation. So, like, I'll get questions from people asking about, like, the level of fitness that they need, and like, it's clearly obvious that your 2 kilometre time trial or whatever aerobic fitness test you want is not a predictor of performance per se, but we've got benchmarks, and if you're a mile off those benchmarks, like, you're not in a great position to be able to do all this other stuff well. So, like, someone will ask me a question that's got something to do with this, and I'll ask, okay, well, what's your 2K time trial like? And they say, 8:45. And I'm like we said before, like, being fat and unfit is not going to help you as a fast bowler. If you're running an 8:45 2K, you just tick 2 boxes. Like, you're not well conditioned. Once you reach a certain threshold, like once you achieve a benchmark, I think probably no longer becomes a focus area. So for us, we say 7 minutes 30 is kind of like in the green. It's not uncommon for guys to go under 7 minutes, so in the high sixes. We're not asking them to be AFL level 2K runners. We're not asking for 6 minutes 15. But you need to be a good runner to be a fast bowler, because, like, I don't know what the proportion is, but 90% of fast bowling is running. It's running, it's the run up. And then after that, what do you got to do? You got to run down to find leg, and then on the odd occasion that you're batting, you score runs. Like, you've got to be able to run. So it's not, like, my philosophy, I value speed really high. I know some other coaches really value aerobic running. So again, probably it's not like that important, but I don't see any coaches who don't value some form of running. Like, I think you need to be a good runner. In some way, shape or form, you need to be good at it.
Curiously, what do you think about getting your aerobic conditioning through alternative means, or like modes? So not just running. What are your thoughts on using bikes, or, it might be some GPP or something like that? Because I think, and this is just my thoughts, but if guys can run, I'd rather have them running than doing something that just may not transfer as well. Like, unless, I don't know, like a session and you might put them on a bike. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it all just comes back down to load management. Like, if you can run. But if you've got constraints around where your windows for adaptation are in a training week, and you're basically asking people to be on legs, day after day after day, then at some point going off legs with your conditioning. And off legs doesn't mean your legs aren't working, but taking away that impact loading from the conditioning stimulus makes a lot of sense to me. So I know some people kind of shit can the bike, but a lot of our guys use the bike, and like you can get a pretty good training stimulus from it. It's not as specific, it's not as good as running, but we're not replacing running. We're modifying running when and where appropriate.
Yeah.
So yeah, like it's almost similar to your bowling loads in terms of that 1-3-5 where it's 1 day in a row. Like ideally 1 day in a row of high intensity impact leg loading, 1 day where we don't have that type of stimulus. So I think like as a good rule of thumb, like Charlie Francis high load model, like for me, your sprinting, your live nets, your competitive bowling, those are high intensity training means. Your off-league conditioning, upper body weights, like static fielding, your batting, that's that low intensity stuff. So if and where you can, trying to alternate your high intensity days with your low intensity days is a really good sort of rule of thumb to follow, or a heuristic to follow, that's going to help you distribute your training load more appropriately throughout the course of the week.
I mean, I'm sure we can dig into the schedules and whatnot. Actually, one thing I wanted to ask around weekly schedules, given that district is going to be a lot different to what you get at the elite level, do you often run on like a 7-day-a-week type program, or do you sometimes almost run off like a 10-day-a-week program and try to, or is it just sort of because the schedules are, they can be all over the shop, you almost have to find a different periodization strategy for each thing? I mean, it's sort of a broad, open-ended question, but
well, yeah, I mean, it's a really tricky environment that we work in, where not only is it a complex training and playing schedule, but not everyone in our squad is on the same playing competition schedule as well.
that's
So
a program for, you're right, 17, 20 plus different programs.
yeah, it's a mess. So again, it just comes back to like your rule of thumbs in terms of, all right, let's try and find opportunities. Like, where are our opportunities, and when can we push and when can we pull? And that's really going to be dictated by your competition schedule. Like me personally, most of my experiences have been working with academy pathway age athletes who are playing premier cricket on the weekend. So their schedule is far more predictable and aligns a lot better with 7-day week. So those guys, they're going to play first grade on a Saturday, and they're going to play under 20s on a Sunday most weeks. And then ideal situation, they're going to do two forms of strength training throughout the week. We've got other constraints placed on it. And this is the thing, mate, like ideal scenario versus what actually happens in the real world are different. Like we can only cater to so many athletes in the facility on any given day. So as much as ideal scenario, I think we would do Tuesday, Thursday training sessions, we end up having to do Monday, Wednesday, just because of constraints around access to facilities. So if you're looking at your grade district cricketers who play Saturday and or maybe Sunday, I would probably be recommending that they do their high intensity, their high days on a Tuesday and Thursday throughout the week. Probably have Wednesday as a complete rest day. If they really wanted to do some extra conditioning, probably do it on a Monday. And that's probably going to be an off-feet type conditioning session. And I'm also a big fan of like priming sessions. So if you feel like doing like something fast and explosive, but low volume, still high intensity, but ultra low volume, you can do that on a Friday afternoon as well if you can be playing on a Saturday, or potentially even on a Saturday morning. That's how I would sort of break it down. But yeah, at the elite level though, like the competition demands are huge in terms of the number of days, and they're so fluid in terms of like, forget what day of the week you think your game's going to be on at the start of the year. Like the fixture has no regard for what day of the week. It's going to put competition where it wants to. So you've just got to work around those constraints. And like I said, it's your agile periodisation. It's your push versus pull, and looking for opportunities to stimulate, and also looking for opportunities to deload and adapt. And a lot of that is being decided only a couple of weeks out from when it actually happens as well, based on how things are going. Like we can't write the plan at the start of the year and expect it to go like that, because it ain't happening.
Yeah, I mean, what you said there with the looking for opportunities to stimulate, looking for opportunities to deload, that sort of summarises it pretty well. And I think if any S&C coach does watch this, that's a really nice kind of overriding principle to set out when you're thinking about how you might periodise for such a unique kind of sport like cricket. If you follow that sort of rule, I think you'll be okay. Same sort of thing if you think about, I mean, district's pretty straightforward, but I remember thinking about it, I think when they were doing the 2 T20 Saturday, Sunday, and then the sort of following week, I remember at my club, we had a couple of guys break down in the second 2-dayer after the 2 T20. So it was like back-to-back T20s, an extra day load, higher intensity, less rest, and then another week of that, and then, you know, into 2 days, so you bowl more training. There's no one there training to help to try to give these guys some guidelines. It's just, oh, it's 2 day, I'll bowl more because it's a red ball. And they go into the weekend and they bowl more. And then the next weekend, they...
Oh, look, if you're trying to prep yourself for longer format cricket, the week it's about to happen, that ship sailed a long time ago. Like you have not planned your loading appropriately, if that's your approach.
I think this filters back into a question about how you structure your pre-season. And I think, you know, I think a lot of coaches could add a new layer into their awareness and planning, and think about the kinds of skills and volumes that guys need to be doing, so that it's not just guys running and bowling, which I think a lot of the time it ends up being. And I feel like there's such an imbalance between the awareness of how to coach bowlers and the awareness of how to coach batters. If that's going to talk to train skills, train technique, I don't think bowlers are given that same sort of thing. A lot of the time I feel like there's more rules on bowlers. You might not get this, because the elite level it's a lot different, but you know, just bowl it off stump, you know. And I feel a lot of bowlers are restricted in this path about, like, just focus on your line and length, and then when it comes to bowling 6 stump wide Yorkers or slower balls or bouncers, you know, I wonder how many guys actually practice bouncer. You know, I think everyone should be able to bowl a bouncer. But my thoughts just, you might not use the game if you bowl 110 k's an hour, but if you can hit that length and you give yourself a greater awareness of being able to control different lengths and lines, I think that's going to make you a better bowler, as opposed to...
Yeah, and it just comes back to, I think it makes a lot of sense to me that fast bowlers need more variability in their training than what they traditionally do. So like you're saying, practicing different deliveries, practicing bowling different lines and lengths. Unfortunately, most bowlers, especially in grade, club, district land, are used as cannon fodder for batting practice, which is such a silly way of approaching it, because they are the only athletes in the team, so they need to be treated that way. Like,
Yeah, definitely.
especially at that level. At that level, you're the athletes in the team. Like, there's some 50-year-old bloke who's 115 kilos, and like, he's dealing with boundaries. He's not an athlete, and his practice is what the athlete is being used for. So it's like, it's a tough one, mate. So, like, I think what batters need to do is get good at using the dog thrower so that they can train in pairs. Like, that is a game changer. If they can do that and they can work together, that opens up huge opportunities for fast bowlers training to be planned appropriately. Now, there's another whole argument around skill acquisition for batters. Like, it's so tricky. It's the balance.
See, that kind of stuff shits me, like, because I feel like I get it, but for the benefit that you're going to have being able to do this, to just literally say, oh, it's not as specific. And like I've used it before. I did a session with Tom Scollay, and I'd never used a dog throw before. No one ever thrown it at me. I couldn't fucking pick the ball up. I looked stupid. You know what the issue was? I'm watching his hand. I wasn't watching the fucking head of the thrower.
Where the ball is.
Yeah, exactly. But then I kind of thought, you know what? If I was watching the ball out of, you know, the ball, I could get it close to. It's similar to watching the ball out of the hand. So anyone who tries to say it's like when they say I don't like facing the ball on the bowling machine. Like, just hit the ball. You know,
like there's definitely no like. Okay, so basically from what I've seen, and again, like it's not my program, I don't run it, but from what I've seen at the state level, senior age athletes, there are two sort of distinct categories that batting practice gets put into, and there is full noise live nets, which is valued extremely highly because it's precious time, because you are only getting to face X amount of balls from the quicks because that's all they've got.
Yeah.
And then there is volume, and volume comes out of bowling machines and wangers, and if you don't like it, then you're not hitting cricket balls, because those are the only two options you've got.
Yeah.
So I think what batters who want to get volume need to do is just understand and accept that it's coming out of a bowling machine or a wanger or their throwdowns, because that's what it's got to be. Unless you're going to find someone that you want to pay professionally to bowl to you, and that's their job. Like,
yeah.
That's the way it needs to go. Like if your bowlers are being used,
set bowler.
oh mate, that's my job at the moment.
Oh fuck! I'm just picturing that on my CV. Hey, what are you, professional net bowler?
Net bowler. Yeah.
In a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's classic.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, when you can get buy-in from your batting cohort, then it changes the game for the quicks, because now they can do what they need to do instead of being used as cannon fodder. Like,
yeah.
I remember my experiences in grade cricket were that, like, you just getting asked to bowl for 2 hours straight, and there's no good reason to be doing that. Like, there are other options and better options. So yeah, like, I suppose ultimately it falls back on the coach to drive that change. So hopefully you can sell the idea to them. Like, we're not saying that batters don't get to face live bowling, but there's balance to it, right? Like, you can't just bowl your quicks into the ground just so the batters get more batting practice.
This does happen all too often at bowl level.
Yeah, 100%.
Coach education is something needs to be better. And that's sort of partly why I enjoy doing these kinds of combos, like, because the tangents that we're taking here, you know, people do end up watching this, and I have to think about how I want to split it up. Whether I was just going to chuck the whole thing up onto YouTube, and then I thought about like time coding it, so if people don't want to watch the whole thing, they can skip through, which is more work.
Okay.
Look, if it helps, then definitely. But I thought there's got to be someone out there to watch a 2-hour video. You're clearly someone who's going to be like, this is going to be really important. This is really going to help me. I'm going to do it. Then I thought maybe make it a 30-minute video and like part 1, part 2, part 3. I don't know. For now, I'm just happy having these chats, and for me personally, because that's the biggest thing. You know, I do this for me to, you know, this is how I like to learn. You know, like, I can read a book, I can listen to a podcast, but to actually have conversations with coaches, you know, I mean, sometimes you sit out in the car park after our sessions, and the session would go for an hour, and we'd chat for 2. You know, it got to a point on Sunday Arvo where when Simon left the house, you know, on a Sunday afternoon, right, because he works a full-time job at a university, he's got a wife and 2 kids, he told George, you know, I'll be going, oh, you're coaching Stubbzy. All right, I'll see you in 4 hours.
Yeah, it's a write-off, the day's done.
Pretty much. I thought this is the stuff I'd love to bring to people, you know, because I think people would really enjoy these kinds of conversations. So
yeah,
I really enjoy the chats and the ideas and the thinking. It's the actual actioning and doing of, you know, sitting there on the computer and typing it up, typing it like,
Yeah.
I'd love to get to the point where I could pay someone else to do that, but you know, a private life, C coach.
Oh, mate, what you need is just dictation on Word. You just start talking at it and start printing it out for you.
I said, I have to look into that. That sounds really
Yeah,
good.
you can do it.
All right. Well, I figured we've sort of done the run up. We could look at the back foot contact and the front foot contact from the physical capacity side. But it depends how much time you've got, because I've, you know,
Maybe we'll maybe go to 11.
whatever works for you. Because
Yep.
I'm locked down here. I get to go outside and do a workout, maybe go for a
Done
look
for the day.
yeah, pretty much. So I could genuinely chat until the cows come home. Really do about it. You know, it's funny because having said let's try to solve the equation of how to bowl faster, and then to get 2 hours in and go, I think we got through about 20% of it. So just do that.
All right. Well, if you want to talk about back foot contact, I think, like, again, comes back to what strategy the bowler uses. So if you're a front on bowler who's relying on momentum that you've generated in your run up to create all that energy, then back foot contact is going to be about stiff, short plyometric ground contact time. So from a training intervention perspective, it's going to be your plyos. It's developing those stiffness qualities. It's I did a post about this the other day, where it's the joint that deforms the least is the one that performs the best. So if you can have integrity at the hip, knee and ankle, so that those joints aren't changing in angle or what during that phase, then you know that you're getting the most back out of them. So, like, it's not reinventing the wheel or anything. Like, you just need to be doing plyos, like your pogo jumps, single leg bilateral as well. Like, again, you've got that whole specificity argument. Like, I think people can get carried away with it. Just do pogos. Like, it's not that hard. It's pretty straightforward. Play around with some single leg pogos, but you should be doing that sort of stuff pretty regularly. I think that probably needs to form part of your prep to bowl, like in your warm up. You should be doing that consistently, and then you should probably be doing it in your strength training as well. You just need to be careful with the volume that you're doing. So I think for most athletes, like starting off with 20 to 30 contacts in a session is probably about right as a starting point. And you probably don't want to be doing much more than like 50 to 60 would be a really high number of contacts to be doing, which you could build up to progressively. But I mean, I'm talking 8 to 12 weeks. You should be taking the time to start off at 20 to 30 and building up to that. If your strategy relies more upon spending time on back foot contact, more side on rotational style bowler, that's where I think your traditional lower body strength training is going to transfer better, I think. Again, training studies or objective data to support this, but just looking at it logically, you're more likely to be using your hip and knee angles and extension through the hip and knee to generate force. So your traditional barbell lifts, your squatting, your deadlifting, your split squatting, your barbell hip thrusts, all your basic old school lifts that you're going to use to get strong in your lower body are going to be beneficial for increasing your ability to produce force there. I think most fast bowlers that ask me questions, like talking non-elite level athletes or sub-elite, are nowhere near as strong as they should be, and they've got pretty warped perceptions of how strong is strong. Like, if you're half squatting 80 kilos, you are not strong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Not even close to it. So while strength benchmarks are not all that important, I think they can be useful for that sort of cohort. And for me, it's like you should probably get to a point where you can deep squat, front squat, like 1.5 times your body weight. You should probably be able to sort of do some form of deadlift from the floor, probably more likely to do with a trap bar, with at least twice your body weight on the bar. if you've got good technique, like you could probably do a straight bar deadlift if your tech is really good.
So I was going to say,
Like,
the study you put up, you had the trap bar 2 by body weight. Did you mean the high handles? I'm guessing you meant the high handles, but
that's what I was referring to. Like, that's what we traditionally do, and that's only anecdotal. Like, there's not even any research that mentions trap bar deadlifts in it.
actually, this one of the things, because we've talked a lot about the research and what's not there. One of the things I wanted to get your thoughts on was, as an athletic coach, working in a field where you might say there's limited research, and you can apply research from other fields, but it's also difficult to research these kinds of things because to sort of isolate just one variable. I was curious how, what your thoughts were on creating your own, say, coaching philosophy where you use the available research. Maybe it's like how you go and apply the art, the science, the anecdote, the empirical, and be a good coach.
Yeah, I mean, it's the huge challenge that we face is ultimately we're just taking educated guesses, and what the objective truth of the best way to do things is like no one actually knows. I think, yeah, and ultimately, like, I suppose my biggest weakness as a coach is, while I've got skin in the game, it's only really been for maybe 2 to 3 years that I've been able to like apply like what I want to do in that particular cohort. Like I've worked in S&C before that. In terms of working with fast bowlers, it's a small sample size. So in terms of having case studies to back up what I'm saying, and I'm probably going through the phase now where I'm making lots of mistakes, but it's like, where are all the success stories of the positive changes you've made down the line? I think as much as I'd like to say a lack of experience doesn't stop you from being a good coach, it does objectively stop you from being able to put forward evidence that you are a good coach. So I'd like to think I'm a good coach, and hopefully in 3 to 5 years I'll have case studies that show I am.
Yeah.
But at the moment, like, essentially what I speak on behalf of is rehashing other people's ideas that align with things like my own preconceived biases and things like that. So what I try and do is look to people who have those track records, try and use their experiences and their lessons and apply that in my setting.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that too is I think you need to be really careful that you don't limit yourself to the things that other coaches say work and things that they say don't work. So still be open to trying other things and making your own mistakes, which is a challenge because ultimately the athletes you're working with become guinea pigs. So you need to be realistic with the things that you try with them. And then this is the other thing, is like you try stuff on yourself. Like no better guinea pig than the coach. So that's why I'm pretty open and willing to share the things that I do in my own training. Like I think that's where I get to experiment, play, and have fun with training. Because I don't want to impart too much risk on my athletes in terms of like just throwing random stuff at them. So I'm trying to make mistakes on myself so I can learn from them as well. But from a philosophical perspective, like I actually do, maybe in the last couple of weeks, I kind of wrote down some things that I felt were like keys to my own philosophy. I think the big ones for me are that I want to instill like an anti-fragile mindset in athletes. I think athletes who think of their body as something that responds well to stress and chaos and will get bigger and better and stronger because of it are already on the path to long-term success. An athlete with a fragile mindset, whereas load is going to break me, I'm always trying to avoid injury. Like that's a pretty toxic mindset to be in. So you should be looking for ways to stress yourself. That doesn't mean just like go nuts, but I think that's a really important one for me. In terms of principles, again, I look to a really good mentor of mine, a guy named Graham Morris, who has this fantastic article where he just talks about principles of training. And he talks about we want our exercises to move from simple to complex. We want to move from low load to high load. We want to move from extensive in nature to intensive in nature. Got this whole series of other ones that he lists out. And it's a really good way of always remembering that like training needs to be progressively overloaded. And we can use those principles of training as strategies for progressive overload. So what you don't want is training stagnant. You don't want to just keep delivering the same content over and over and over again, because one, you're not going to stimulate enough to create an adaptation. Two, your athletes are going to get pretty bored, and bored athletes are going to train with less intensity, and lower intensity is going to result in worse adaptations. So yeah, in terms of the principles of training, that's a big one for me. In terms of engagement for athletes, I'm a big believer in trying to make training competitive, trying to use strategies that increase intensity. So the things I like to use based on that is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Tony Holler's Feed the Cats work. So he's an American high school track coach, and he's got this whole thing that he calls Feed the Cats. And one of the big parts of that is what he calls record, ranking, and publishing. So what you do is you record outcomes in training, you rank those recordings based on where any individual fits within their cohort, and then you publish it for everyone to see. So classic example of that is, all right, today we're going to be doing 10-meter fly sprints. Like, it's a competition.
Yeah.
We're going to record your 10-meter flies. It's going on a leaderboard, and this evening in the group chat, I'm putting up the rankings. Like, I'm publishing it for all of you guys to see. And immediately you're driving competition, which means that now every time we come back to do 10-meter flies, it's going to happen to the intensity. It's going to go up, which means we're going to get bigger stimulus, which is going to drive greater adaptations. That doesn't need to just be 10-meter flies. It could be we're doing jump testing or whatever it is, but having something that's competitive in the program. Another thing that I like to use, another strategy I use, is I'm a big fan of Olympic weightlifting. And the reason I'm a big fan of it is that you get an objective pass or fail on the outcome. So, what I find a little bit frustrating is when strength training is, strength training can get stagnant when an athlete just squats and squats and squats, for example, and there's no measure other than how much weight is on the bar to progress, because that's not the only way that you can increase intensity. For me, like, in terms of weight on the bar in an Olympic weightlifting movement, I think that is a bigger reflection of a training adaptation than it is in traditional strength training or like the powerlifting derivative movements, because not only is an increase in load a reflection of improved strength, it's also a reflection of an increased ability to produce power. So there's a speed and a strength quality that are being reflected by that load. Plus, because there's a technical element in Olympic weightlifting, you get better engagement from athletes in terms of they're actually thinking about the movement in that moment. I think for most athletes doing a trap bar deadlift, there's not a lot of thinking about technique going in there. Like, sure, there's shoulders back and down, big deep breath, brace your abs, lift the bar. But when you've got a movement like a hang power clean, there is so much to learn, to the point that, like, it is a technical sport in and of itself. Like, people go to the Olympics to compete in Olympic weightlifting, and some of them are still trying to improve their technique. When you've got smart athletes, and I think most athletes are smarter than we give them credit for, they get pretty engaged in trying to learn and improve at that stuff. So while you can make arguments about transfer and yada, 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 yada. Like if I can get an athlete who is now thinking about what I'm doing in the gym and how can I do it better, and I get a pass fail, like if I don't put enough speed in this bar, I'm not catching it. So I'm going to fail. So the intent and intensity needs to be high. Like that movement teaches you to be aggressive and explosive. You don't have another option. So for me, I love Olympic weightlifting for that reason. And that just comes back to like what sort of strategies can you use to drive intensity training. Other elements of the philosophy around training, like I think a really interesting one that we've kind of touched on already is that sort of non-linear pedagogy approach, or the constraints-led approach to learning and understanding like dynamic and complex systems. Like people don't learn by going do A, then do B, then do C, then do D. Like it's not a linear process. I think we've all seen that graph, like how you think progress works, like how it actually works, where it's like, and that's the truth. Like that's how it does work. So not being so rigid in the way that you program and progress anything, whether it's strength training, speed training, fast bowling training. Understand that sometimes you need to just throw someone in something that's uncomfortable and something that they might fail in. Like you obviously need to be careful. Like I'm not going to ask someone to do something where there's a high risk of them hurting themselves. But for instance, when I worked in high school strength and conditioning, a really good coach named Cameron Black kind of changed my paradigm with some of the Olympic lifting stuff, where it was like 12-year-old kids who'd never done any strength training, and he was teaching them empty barbell complexes of Olympic weightlifting technique movements. And it looked a bit shit, like their technique was pretty rubbish. And he was like, yeah, but they're not going to hurt themselves. Like, what is the risk here? They're actually exposing themselves to a challenge. And we're coaching them, like they're not just on their own. So they're actually in a really rich environment to learn. Like they're going to make mistakes. Some reps are going to look ugly. And it's not just Olympic weightlifting, this could be anything. Like they're not going to hurt themselves. And you're there to help them through the process. Taking them somewhere uncomfortable, exposing them to something where there's a chance of failure is not a bad thing. Again, perfect practice does not make perfect. There needs to be some sort of intrinsic element in anything where motor learning and skill acquisition is the outcome goal, where there's a risk of failure. And that's where I think like some of these tools like the Aquabag, for example, like people should can it because you never go full boss, right? But it is a cool tool. Like it creates an environment where you are more likely to fall over. You're more likely to lose balance. You're more likely to mess things up. So whatever the movement might be, you might be just like, one of my go-tos is like a walking lunge into a hip lock, Aquabag, in arms overextended overhead. So you can still load that pretty heavy. Like you can probably get a good 15, 20 kilos in an Aquabag overhead, which is enough. Like you could do that movement with a plate and that would be heavy enough as well. But you've also got this chaos and instability. And the chaos and instability is what's happening above ground. So like, it's a whole other topic, like stability training, right? For me, stability training, like if you actually want to improve someone's ability to interact well with the ground, instability needs to come above ground. It shouldn't come from the ground. Like we interact with solid ground surface all the time. There are no team or field sports that are played on postal balls. Yeah. So I've got no problem with like hanging bands or Aquabags from bars and stuff like that as tools for introducing stability and creating a bit of chaos in movements. Like you pick and choosing moments to use them. Like we're still doing heavy strength training at the same time. Like why can't you do both? That's sort of like my.
I had this brief chat with you when we were discussing what sorts of things people would need to get educated on and maybe just feed into another chat, but I remember you saying like people need a good understanding of what the big rocks are, what the fundamentals are, and then how you can start to think about special strength work and how it might appropriately apply. But like you said, when you search hashtag fast bowling, or you see some of Stefan's latest work where it's very it just looks very complex, and then you go, that's sort of stuff I should be doing. But there's a time.
Well, and I think all that stuff is great. Like, do it, but don't think that is all that you need to do if you're half squatting 80 kilos. Like, you're weak. You need to get strong.
Yeah, well, it sort of links back into why I sort of started doing some of these things. Because one of my, and you may have found this as well, one of the issues that I found with Instagram is I post a picture or a video and then I write a post, but it's a lot of time it's me sharing a snapshot of a big picture which they don't know about. And I find that, if I start to talk about technical factors and I don't get it across in the manner that they're understanding how this actually applies and what they should think about and how to actually do it, I may actually be just contributing, just noise and actually confusing more people. And you get people asking me, how do I shin lead? It's like, I've never coached a shin lead in my life. I might coach someone to run, and then depending on how they go for their jump, I might give them some sort of analogy and, get them to keep their legs moving, because if their legs aren't moving, they're going to bend. And
yeah. Well, and the other thing is, like, a lot of technical issues might be a lack of physical capacity. Like I said, if you're breaking through your front leg, for instance, say you're a knee flexor, and that is a limiting factor for performance, and we've decided that we don't want you to do that because we want you to bowl faster and we want you to brace front leg. Yes, there will be some. In fact, I'm very confident that, like, isometric training strategies to learn that position, understand it, get comfortable and get strong in it are going to help. But you also need to provide training with enough density and stimulus to create an adaptation for you to make anatomical changes to your body that are going to give you the horsepower to use that technique, especially if you're also trying to run in faster at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just not strong enough to brace your front leg, like, doing all of this technical stuff, like, it might actually change your technique to what you want. You're going to end up with shin stressing in no time at all because you're just like pounding your bones, or you're going to start degenerating a meniscus or something. Like, you can't flex bone. Like Dave Tate, old school powerlifting, you cannot flex bone. Like, you need to put some muscle on your frame to give yourself a chance to redirect load.
Yeah.
So strong muscle connective tendon tissues are extremely important, especially in your lower body. Like, it's extremely important.
Yeah, and I think just here we've touched on the fact that I can't put this into one Instagram post. How do you break the point?
You need a matrix, mate. You need, like, fast bowling performance here, and then you've got ball speed, and then over here you've got, like, the art.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're different, and then you've got everything that stems off the art over here, and you've got everything that stems off that over there, and maybe down the bottom you need, like, repeatability, because that's also important. It's not just ball speed, it's not just the art. It's like, you need to be able to show up and do this day in, day out if you want to have a long, successful career. Everything that stems off that.
And I try to start it as, the objective goal of cricket is to win, and then I also added in win with integrity, because I think, if that's the objective goal of cricket, I try to start it with, like, you've got your mind and body of the individual. That's important to understand, your psychology and your biology. You've got the coach to athlete relationship, because that leaks into teaching styles and learning methods. And then I try to, what is my big picture? I had this grand philosophical thought and gone, fuck, what is it I'm actually trying to teach people? Because, you can get lost in the nitty gritty and do a post on it, but is that post actually going to help anyone? And then I started thinking, that's all. It's one of the reasons why I stopped posting, because sometimes I get frustrated getting the same questions, and I feel like I'm getting the same questions. Either I'm not explaining it well enough, or they're just not getting it. Which same thing. But you know, or they're just looking for the magic pill, in which case they can shuffle off. Like I'm not going to do that. But I sort of sat here and thought, I need a better way to get this across. You know.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big believer. Like if they haven't learned it, you haven't taught it, and sometimes that makes you ask hard questions of yourself. Like I get frustrated with athletes who just keep doing the opposite of what we're asking them to do.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, part of it is on them, but also like, why haven't I been able to get them to buy into this? Which is a really tough question to ask yourself as a coach, especially like when everything's been going good for the last month and you feel really confident in what you're doing, and then someone does something stupid, they know better, and you're like, why has the messaging I've been providing you not landed? Like there's a mistake that I've made there somewhere along the line as well. But it's good because it's challenging you to be better, right?
Well, that's it, you know. And you either win or you learn. That's a nice little philosophy that I sort of have, and I think with that it goes well. What is it? The radical self. Got the damn word, but radical ownership, self ownership. Extreme
ownership.
Extreme ownership. That's the one. Jocko, I think.
Jocko.
Yeah, that's where I'd like to. I'd like to share something better. And, I mean, one of the things I'd like to do is, I might have told you before, but I'd like to have some sort of a course or something in that, if you don't want to pay me the private coach, like that's fine. I'll show you the apps and the different things out there that you can go to if you don't want, but maybe you can pay for my knowledge, so to speak, and there might be a little athlete course type thing. And given the fact that I am a private coach, I have the time to do it. Someone like Simon, he works at the university all day doing his own research.
Yeah.
Working post-water. I sit here and think the luxury I have is I'm not trying to be a specialist. I'm happy to be a generalist who can have these kinds of conversations and bring them to people. Bring people through this kind of a long-form interview type thing, a discussion, a part. But then I thought the things that we're touching on a goal, like we talk about skill acquisition here, and if coaches had that knowledge, it'd be great. So I'd like to have something to say. Well, if you want to learn it, here's a little.
Yeah, I mean that really should be part of coaching education. Like, I think that was one of the best subject I did at university was like second semester motor learning, and third year first semester skill acquisition, like whatever they were called.
Yeah.
But having someone like really fundamentally take you through, not only like for us, I think it was taught brilliantly as well, in terms of we went through the history of all these old theories around motor learning and skill acquisition, and it's all the stuff that people are still rooted to today, but our course sort of showed you, okay, well actually here are some of the flaws in that thinking, here are some of the flaws in this, and this is where the rules that they're trying to show you don't apply. And ultimately you get to the end and you're like, well actually motor learning and skill acquisition is dynamic and complex. It's not as simple as we try and make it out to be. And then understanding like constraints-led learning as a model, and always having that in the back of your mind in terms of, all right, well, if this is the outcome I'm looking for, how can I manipulate constraints so that the athlete figures it out for themselves?
Yeah.
And when they start figuring stuff out for themselves, like that learning is sticky. That's gonna stay with them.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to have to keep cueing someone to do the same thing over and over. Like, and ultimately, I'm not out there with them in the middle. Like I can't be coaching them while they're performing. Like they need to have learnt it themselves. They need to own that skill. They need to have actually acquired it. And that's why it's so important that we don't confuse performance and training with performance retention long term.
Yeah.
So if someone can do something really well in a training session, it's not necessarily indicative of them being able to do it well in competition.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well.
Anyway, we've gone a little bit longer than I thought, so we might leave it there.
Well, I appreciate it. What do you got now?
I need to, what do I need to do? I've got to review all the bowling loads for my guys, because we've had such a a messy pre-season. I've barely seen any of my pathway guys. I've kind of just been exclusively working with the Blues in the last few weeks. I've been working with some of the girls. We've got to go to Brisbane to play for Australia. But I'm not really, like, my main job is working with pathway athletes. So the guys that I'm most invested in development of, I've seen the least, which is tricky. Which also means that, like, you've got less control over what they're doing, which has got some benefits as well in terms of, like, it's pushed them to be really independent this pre-season. Because we run 2 pathway programs. We've got like a metropolitan and a country. Yeah. Traditionally, the country guys are the ones who are very hands-off from us and are forced to be quite independent. Whereas the metro kids, we're very hands-on with, and, like, potentially a criticism of that is that they get spoon-fed a little bit. So this pre-season, they've had to really be independent, which is a good thing. Along the way, though, they make mistakes by not doing bowling sessions when they're meant to, and now you start looking at bowling wrestling, which you're actually in a very good position to play grade cricket in a few weeks' time. So I'm going to have a look at how they're all been tracking, update that, contact all the guys, and just touch base with them and see how they're tracking. Make sure that they're getting well prepped to start playing cricket if and when it happens, which we're pretty hopeful will be last weekend in September, I think. So probably the main task for today, and other than that, just working on some little projects, doing some stuff with CA, Cricket Australia. We've got some of my own little side projects I'm working on as well.
That's good. I like that.
A busy day. What about you? You just going to go smash out a training session and then play Xbox?
I don't game at all. Like, I did when I was, 18, 19. I loved killing zombies. Like, I'll happily and I'll happily get to level 30 and then start again and go again. I don't mind.
Black Ops? Zombies?
Black Ops, yeah. Although it was never my it was always a mate thing.
Yeah, I was the same.
Which is probably why I was so excited to do it, because it's such a rare thing. But
yeah.
Depends what I'm interested in, like, because I just let my mind go and then do that. I realise I need to be more disciplined in doing the things that I actually want to get done. So planning out what I do to design a course, and I want to finish off how I'm going to, like, video produce these things so I can finally post them, because I've got 5 now.
Oh yeah, okay.
I've just sat there. Like, I feel, Simon I did probably 3 months ago, during the first lockdown. And now I haven't posted any of it yet. I'm probably halfway through editing it. It just takes time. So that's hopefully.
It might just be easier to cut it up and ship it as a podcast, like do it audio only.
But see, I reckon this audio is going to be the best one that I've had. Some of Simon's, and because Aaron lives in Balnarring, his audio is not great at all. So
I'm on the NBN now, mate. So
there you go. Yeah, perfect. Oh gosh, actually, the NBM's not usually all that good, but you know what? It has actually been pretty good issue with Telstra. I think is Telstra good.
Don't hear too much good about Telstra very often, so that's a good one.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll end up keep ranting, so I'll leave it at that.
All right, dude. Good chatting, man.
Put something together for the next one based off some of the questions or thoughts that pop out of this.
Yeah, we can do another one again, mate. It'd be awesome.
All right, mate. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
So I hope you guys enjoyed part 2 of my conversation with Nathan Kiely. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them below. I'll be more than happy to answer them. If you enjoyed the conversation and you feel like staying up to date, feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel. And if you do feel like following any more of the content that I post, I do share a lot more on Instagram, and there will be links below. You can also find links to Nathan Kiely's social media. So if you'd like to see some more of the content that he's sharing, you'll find those below. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I look forward to engaging with you in the future.